Okay, so the Locktons have landed in New York, and so they're struggling to get their things brought to their house. So we now know about this Bellingham character. So Mr. Lockton says, London, never. England offers us nothing but taxes, stamps, and bloodshed. How odd. Word from Boston is that you still lick the king's boots, said Bellingham. Madame drew in her breath sharply, but said nothing. Why do you insult me, sir? Lockton replied. We are at war, sir, Bellingham said in a voice that all could hear. Several of the dock workers put down their burdens and stood up straight. Insults are the least of my concerns. I'm more worried about the British invasion. Lockton shrugged. I am a merchant with cargo to sell. Search my crates. If you wish, search the entire ship. You won't find the British fleet, I promise you. Those yellow-bellied cowards have sailed for Canada. Bellingham took 2 steps and stood a fingertip away from Lockton. He lowered his voice. I don't have time for your games. The Committee of Safety suspects you, a Tory, in cahoots with Governor Tryon. You've come home to fight us who strive for freedom and liberty. All work on the ship had stopped. The air had suddenly grown warm. I glanced sideways. The soldiers guarding the crates had picked up their guns. The clerk at the desk was the only one who seemed unrattled. He opened the ink bottle, dripped his pen, and scratched something across a blank page. I caught the boy behind the clerk sparing a quick look at Ruth and me. His eyes were dark gray, the color of the sea during a storm. Freedom and liberty has many meanings, Lockton finally said. Am I free to return to my home? Shall I be at liberty from the improper meddling of your committee? Bellingham held his position a moment longer. Then he took one long step back. Search the cargo, he commanded. He commanded the soldiers, who laid down their weapons and picked up crowbars. Very well, Lockton said. Am I under arrest? Not until I find something, said Bellingham. Then I'm leaving. My wife is exhausted and needs me to accompany her home. Charles will stay and supervise. The round man sputtered twice but didn't say a word. Enjoy your homecoming, Bellingham said. It may be short. The soldiers had started to go through the crates and call out the contents, the clerk writing down the details in his big book. Lockton motioned with his elbow again. Come, dear, he said firmly. Madame refused to move. We cannot leave without my chest. Now, wife, he said, it will be sent along. It travels with me, Madame said crisply. Mr. Bellingham. Bellingham bent over the clerk's inventory book, looked up. Ma'am? Does your battle for liberty entitle you to search through the private linens of a lady? The doc fell silent again. It was one thing for a gentleman to threaten another gentleman with arrest. The topic of a lady's linens was delicate. Linens are like her clothes. Bellingham cleared his throat and stood up straight. The rules. Do I gather, sir, from your hesitation that you are unaware of the etiquette involved? Perhaps you lack the proper authority. She carefully set herself on the walnut chest in question. No, Anne, please, Lockton groaned. Do not do this, my dear. Madame ignored him. I demand that Mr. Bellingham write to his Congress in Philadelphia. If they give permission for common soldiers to rifle through my personal goods, then I will surrender. Until that letter arrives, I shan't move. I shall guard my dignity day and night. She's being a little difficult. Charles shifted nervously from foot to foot. Lockton pinched the space where his nose met his forehead. The soldiers studied the tips of their boots. Bellingham muttered something impolite, and the boy standing behind the clerk fought hard not to smile at this. My own lips twitched. A woman defending her underclothes from a battalion of soldiers was comical. I didn't dare laugh, of course. But Ruth did. She giggled, a sound like a small silver bell, a bell tolling disaster. Madame Lockton flew off the chest and pointed her fingers at us. Which one of you made that noise? Her face flushed with rage, her eyes darting back and forth between us. I did, ma'am, I quickly lied. The smile on Ruth's face faded as she figured that something bad was about to happen. Crack! Lightning struck from a blue sky. Madam slapped my face so hard it near threw me to the ground. The sound echoed off the stone-faced buildings. Ruth grabbed at my skirt and helped me stand straight again. She was confused, but kept my mouth closed. But kept her mouth closed, thank heavens. My cheek burned, but I fought back the hot tears and tried to swallow the lump in my throat. No one had ever slapped my face like that, not once in my whole life. Better me than Ruth, better me than Ruth, I kept saying to myself. Madam sat back on the wooden chest and looked calmly at her husband, as if nothing had happened. The soldiers all went about their business, one of them whistling. The only person who looked my way was the boy in the red hat. He kept his features froze in a mask, but he swallowed hard. Lockton shrugged. You see, Bellingham, I don't have time for your war. I have enough battles in my own household. Bellingham sighed and waved at the soldier closest to where Madam sat. You there, carry the lady's belongings to her carriage. He did not mention me. I was already forgotten, dismissed, through the outline of her palm and fingers still burned on my skin. For an instant, I saw myself pushing her off the dock into the water below, but I blinked twice and the vision vanished. I took Ruth by the hand. Madam rose gracefully. Thank you, Mr. Bellingham. Lockton offered his arm again to his wife, and this time she took it. Bellingham lifted his hat as they passed. Ruth and me trailed close behind. As we approached the carriage, the driver jumped down and opened the door. Lockton helped his wife as she stepped up and settled on the padded seat. Well done, my dear, he murmured. Well done indeed. Madam blushed. 'Twas all your doing, she smoothed her skirts. Put the little girl up with the driver. What about the older girl? She leaned forward to stare at me, standing just behind the master. Send that one to fetch us some clean water. I doubt Becky has had word of our arrival yet. Lockton looked puzzled. How will she know where to find the pump, or how to get home, for that matter? Charles will find someone to assist her. I'll take her, sir. Lockton turned around. The boy had removed his red hat and bowed politely. I'm Curzon, sir, Mr. Bellingham's boy. My master needs me to fetch new quills up Vanderwater Street. I could show your girl the way. The driver and the soldier had finished strapping the walnut chest to the back of the carriage. The driver spoke gently to Ruth and took her by the hand to meet the horses. She giggled and went eagerly. Lockton studied the boy, then looked over to Bellingham, who was inspecting one of the opened crates with a nervous Charles by his side. Excellent idea, Madam said. You know where our house is? Lockton asked Curzon. One of the proudest houses in our city, sir, the boy answered, as he put his hat back on his head. With him, standing this close, I could see the gold ring in his right ear, like a pirate's, and a long, thin scar that ran along the left side of his chin. South side of Wall Street, just past Smith, said Curzon. Lockton grunted and glared at me. Be quick about your business, no dawdling, you understand? I curtsied, bewildered at the speed of it all. Yesterday I had been aboard a ship. The day before that, sold in a tavern. The day before that, I woke up in my own bed and watched an old woman die. My belly ached again, as if I was still at sea, and the waves were throwing me off balance. Well? Lockton demanded. Yes, sir, I whispered. He looked at his wife. This one might be simple, too. He climbed into the carriage, closed the door, and rapped at the ceiling with his knuckles. Go, driver! The carriage rolled away, Ruth sitting up straight with a big grin, the golden horses tossing their manes, hooves flashing in the sunshine. She waved to me as they drove away. I bent down, dipped my fingers in a puddle, and scrubbed the spot where that woman had hit me. Oh, boy. Poor Isabel. She took the brunt for her sister's giggling, so now she's got a really bad scar across her face from Madame slapping her hard. So she's met Curzon, who is Mr. Bellingham's servant or slave, and Curzon's going to show her to where the water is for the Locktons. So we'll see what role Curzon plays in this story now. Might be a big one. Stay tuned.